Hi, everyone. I'm Stephanie Boozer with CUGC HQ. Welcome to today's user share webinar. We're going to be talking about automating with APIs. If you're curious, the difference between a user share and our Connect webinars is our user shares are brought to us by people in the community. They're not sponsored. They're not brought by vendors. It's just completely voluntary content that comes to us from the community, and we love getting this. So if you ever want to present to the community, you know the door is always open. I'm the person to talk to. So there we go. I'm going to get us kicked off now. Before we get into everything, though, I do want to remind you of some events that we have coming up. We're still running our local group meetings, even though we can't meet in person. We do them online, and they're lots of fun. So definitely check out our events calendar. There is a link in the chat window for you right now. Coming up next week, we have Columbus, and then we have two of our big Excel events. As you know, those are our day-long events. We looked for fun ways to put those together online, and we've come up with a great solution. So we've got some fun activities planned. Next week is CUGC Excel Great Lakes. I think one of our pre-game activities is Fortnite for Boomers. Hopefully that's not an offensive title, but I think it's going to be really fun. Tips and tricks for Fortnite for people who are not 13. So check out our events. Hope you guys can join some of those. All right, so today we are definitely recording this presentation, and you will receive a link to that recording. It is going to come to you directly from GoToWebinar, so be on the lookout from that. We also like to remind you to submit your questions at any time. We'll try to take some during the presentation, whatever is appropriate. If it makes sense to be asked right then, it's pertinent, we'll definitely try to take care of that right away. But the more general questions we'll save for the end. So just submit your questions as you have them, and we'll handle it from there. And finally, we'll be putting a link in the chat to a survey at the end. So I'd love to get your feedback. We love to get your suggestions, all your comments about our webinars at CUGC. Okay, so with us today and taking care of all of your questions and keeping an eye on them is Jake Walsh. He is a Citrix technology advocate and a technical consultant. Jake, would you like to say hello?
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks, Stephanie. So obviously my name is Jake Walsh. I'm a CTA consultant working in the UK. I'm probably just as excited as everybody else about this presentation, to be honest. It's an area I haven't had a huge amount of exposure to, so some great content coming up with Chris and Chris. And yeah, I'll be keeping an eye on the questions and asking those. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jake.
Cool.
All right, and without further ado, I present Chris times two. We have Chris Yukin and Chris Tweese. They're both Citrix technology advocates. They've presented to us in the past, and I'm happy to welcome them back today. I think that we have an hour booked today, but I think Chris told me that it's actually going to take a little bit longer. So just FYI, if you need to drop out later, you definitely can, because you'll be getting the recording. But we hope that you'll stay on, because I don't know if you remember from some of the advertising, I am giving away some CUGC t-shirts at the end. So hopefully you can all stay on for that. All right, guys, I'm going to hand things right on over to you, and I'm going to turn off my camera so I'm not distracting. So bye. I'll be back later. And Chris, I'm sending you the screen now. Let me do that. Here it comes. All right. And there we go.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephanie, for the introduction.
Okay, you started off, Chris.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks everyone also for joining us today. We'll be talking about APIs. If you go to the next slide, you can see the stuff we're going to talk about today. First, we're going to give a small introduction on who we are. I'm going to do a small rant about why you should care about APIs. Then other Chris is going over what is an API, giving some basic API examples. He's going to show you translating an API to PowerShell and performing tasks with API. Then I'm going to take it back and I'm going to talk to you guys about searching for APIs. So how can you find undocumented APIs? I'm going to talk about creating your own APIs, how to test APIs, integrating APIs, and the integrating APIs part will be the Citrix Microsoft part, micro apps part, sorry. And because what Stephanie already said is we want to do this a little bit longer, because during those things I want to do live building. So not even a live demo, but really build a micro app together from scratch. And we have a community which we're going to talk about.
Okay, so before we continue, we were supposed to start the first poll. So I'm launching it now, and everybody should have a question on the screen.
Yeah.
So just wait for everyone to vote.
Yeah, so this is just to give a quick representation of the audience, so that we know if you ever used it. What you should know also about our presentation, it goes from 1 till 11. So Chris is going to start out at 1 with examples of what is an API and really basic examples, and I'm going to take it to 11 with creating your own API. So so maybe
so I guess the voting is about done. Run for about a minute, and we have 40%. Let me close it. So it's 40%, 41% yes, 56% no, and 4% of you to actually ask the question, what is an API? So we're about to get into that.
Yeah.
But first, let us introduce ourselves.
Yeah. So I'm Chris Twiest. What Stephanie already said, I'm a Citrix technology advocate. I work at Rawworks as technology officer. I've been doing creating, managing, and automating EUC environments for the past 10 years. At Rawworks, I'm responsible for research and development. We do a lot of stuff with APIs there. We recently even won the Citrix Converge Hackathon, in which we created a micro app to onboard a new employee automatically. So that was really great. Yeah, that's me. And I have my own blog, Workspace Guru.
Okay, hey, that guy looks like me. My name is Chris Joke. I'm a EUC consultant, and I basically spend my time designing and building and managing EUC environments, and I have been for the last 10 years doing the virtual desktop stuff. And I also have my own blog, chrisjoke.com, and I'd like to use automation, but only where it's beneficial.
Yeah, so this is mine, a small rant about why you should care about APIs. I think if you click again, there comes another image with it. Yeah, so I recently did 2 polls also on Twitter, where I was gonna what is the future of the digital workspace? Well, is that WVD? Is it Citrix virtual apps? Is it modern workplace? Is it something else, or is it the web browser? Well, most people are starting to see that the web browser is a really strong contender for the next digital workspace. So the workspace portal, as like the Citrix Premium workspace. And that is just because the user experience is really good. And if we look at the other poll, you can also see that just like the poll we just had, that not everyone has already worked with APIs and integrating them. So a lot of presentations and stuff going around on the internet right now is really focused on stuff like Microsoft Windows Virtual Desktop and Citrix Cloud and DaaS solutions, that they're the best thing. But what you must remember is DaaS solutions and Windows Virtual Desktop and stuff, it's just a way that a user can work with an application. It's just a way of publishing that application. There's nothing special about it. it doesn't make those users work any more efficient. It doesn't make them work faster. That is where APIs come in. So making sure that within that same place that they start their work, they can do a small task like form a PTO request, create a ticket, all that stuff from one web browser, one portal. That will create that efficiency in the work, and that will also allow to automate big processes and start them right from of your workspace. So it's a different way of thinking, and I think that this will become more and more important.
Okay, I would even go one step further and say it isn't about the app, it is about the information or the task that app does.
Yeah. So yeah, because now we are just publishing those apps with Windows Virtual Desktop, with Citrix Virtual Apps and Desktops. But if you can you use the app to view information and to edit information. And if you can do that view and edit information in one user interface in your workspace portal, that's a game changer. So in the future, we'll be doing that more and more and more. So the micro apps is getting more important, but don't think that it's only Citrix. VMware has mobile flows. Microsoft Teams has a whole app store building with all kinds of stuff that you can do directly from Teams. And all that stuff is API based. So why should you care about APIs? Well, APIs are also gonna affect the end-use computing environment. So the EUC guys, the Citrix guys, we also need to know about APIs. So that is why I think that our presentation is important and you should know about APIs. So that was my small rant. Over to Chris, who's going to talk about those APIs.
Okay, so to start off, what is an API? Well, API stands for Application Programming Interface. A couple of words that probably won't mean a lot to some people. Well, there's a pronunciation. I'll stick to API. So I added two definitions: a set of rules that allows programmers to develop software for a particular operating system without having to be completely familiar with the operating system. Not the best one. I like this one better. A set of functions and procedures allowing the creation of applications that access the features or data of an operation, application, or service. So you can access the information of an application or a database or anything without using the actual client of that application. So to get you guys familiar with APIs, guys and girls, sorry, we have 4 examples of APIs, just basic APIs that anyone can have access to. So since I was at Merriam-Webster to grab the definition of APIs, I saw that they had an API. So I looked it up, and they have a pretty standard API. Before you can use it, you need an API key. So most APIs aren't open to everyone right away. You need to register for an API key. So you're basically saying, yeah, I'd like to use it, and here they give you the key so you can use it. They do this because they can manage who has access to their API, because when you use it a lot, you're consuming resources for which you aren't paying anything. So you can get an API. Don't bother screenshotting this because these aren't correct anymore. You can just register, you enter your email address, and usually you need to give a short synopsis of what you're trying to do. But they give you 2, one for the dictionary part and one for the thesaurus part. So they have a pretty good documentation of the API. So if I'd like to look up a word, they give this request URL. So it's basically just a URL that you can copy paste into your browser, and you just need to replace the voluminous. That's the search query, and after key you enter your API key. So if you look below, that's the kind of response that I should get when I do something like this. So I edited it. Well, you see it laid out again, the search string and the API key. So I edited it for myself. I want to search scripting, and my API key is at the end. And well, it gives this as response. As you can see, there's some information in it, but it isn't really readable. But that's because it's in JSON, and JSON is a kind of markup language for this kind of information. So I added an extension to my browser that converts JSON to a more readable format, so you get something like this. That's a bit better, but this isn't the nicest thing to see. But it's one example, and we're going to get back to that in a moment to see how to use it with PowerShell. So for the second one, I want to do something a bit more fun. I'm guessing most of you guys know the application Steam. Some guys are gamers out there, you probably know Steam. And these guys also have an API. Well, what can you do with it? You can look up the news, you can look up stats, you can look up achievements of games. So I went for the achievement part, and basically when you play a game in Steam, there are several achievements that you can get while playing it for, I don't know, getting a high score or completing the level in a short time. You can look up these achievements and how many players have gotten them. So you see also I don't know, Chris, can you see my mouse or?
Yes, we can see the mouse. Okay. Sorry, okay. I muted myself. So.
Okay, so this is the API URL, and they give a game ID, and they want the format that it is in. Since we're doing everything in JSON, so I changed it to JSON, and the game ID you can look up in Steam. So I changed the game ID. This is the game ID for Team Fortress, because they probably think people just still like that game. So I changed it to the game Rocket League. So this is the complete URL. And one thing you might know is, might see, there's no API key in this, because this is a public API. This part of Steam is public, so anyone can paste this in their browser and retrieve the information. So that will give me this. These are all the achievements. The list is much longer, but I think you get to the point. And you can see which percentage of players has that achievement. So since Command and Conquer is all the rage right now, I decided to add that too. And here you have the achievements percentage for that game.
So if I just can interrupt you really quick.
Yeah, sure.
So for the people who answered from, well, what's an API? Well, API is what Chris already said with the dictionary, but if you look at it a little bit more technical, you can see it's just a URL which you format or add even a headers to, and you get response back in a JSON format. And when you are scripting, you can take the JSON, and that is your input for your script, maybe, or you can edit a JSON and push it back up. So APIs work with those URLs. I think maybe to just iterate that for the people who really didn't have any idea what an API was.
Okay, so I got one message from Jose, who says Team Fortress 2 for life. I don't really agree. It wasn't really my game. But back to the presentation. Since I wanted to also do an undocumented and a particularly useful API, is the waste management system of the town that I live in. So basically, they pick up the trash at a couple of days around the month. So plastic and the green trash and paper, etc. And they actually have a system for this behind it, but it isn't really documented because it's only used by the website itself. But I can use it in my home automation. And I thought, since it was useful, I want to add it. So they have an address, and actually this is two parts. First, you have the API, and then I add my postal code and my house number, and then it gives me back this. It doesn't tell me anything, but well, you guys can now see where I live. So thanks for the fan mail in advance. the most important thing here is the bag ID, and that's sort of the route number, the route the garbage guys will go to pick up my trash. So when I grab that bag ID and add it to this URL, it will show me a long list. Once again, I only got the top part of it, but you get the gist. It gives me what kind of waste. This is paper, and it shows me when it's going to be picked up. This is a bit older screenshot, but I think it's clear. We'll get back to this, how this works in practice and how I use it. So the fourth one I added is about beer, because we all like beer probably. And that's Untapped. Untapped is an application where you can keep track of every kind of beer you tried and what you thought of it, and you can share that information with your friends. But these guys also have an API. But one important thing about this one is the authentication mechanism is a bit more complex. This is one you need to register for, and it also wants to know what you're going to do with it. So there are a couple of options. You want to add to your website, or just want to try it, and there's a couple of answers when you choose that. They basically say, well, you can't use it then, because they don't want to use it for everything. Okay, so I registered. Once again, these are changed already, so don't bother doing screenshots. You get a client ID and a client secret. Basically, it's kind of a username and a password. But that's not everything. Because first, you need to use this URL, you add your client ID, and you need to specify a redirect URL. Because they want to, when you use this URL, they want to send you back to your own website where you use the API. So you need to specify a redirect URL when you request the API. And when you go to this URL, it will send you back to your website, including the proper code. So it will basically give you a redirect to that with the code added. And then you can use the code in this URL. You add your client ID, you can enter your client secret, your redirect URL, and the code you just received. And then you finally get a token. And a token is the most important thing, because with that, you can basically do the rest. But this was a good example because the authentication was a bit more complex.
Yeah, and so this is also kind of the default way that OAuth, what you also can see in the URL, works.
Yep. Yeah.
With client ID, client Citrix, and a client secret and a redirect URL. So this is typical OAuth.
Yeah. Okay. So when you're finally through that, you want to do something useful. So I add my access token, and I added a search string. Leffe is basically a pretty famous Belgian beer, and it will give me all kinds of beers from that brand. Once again, the list is a lot longer, but you get the information. You get the beer name, you get information about it, and you can see if I had it or if I've checked it out already.
It even gives you back a image. You can see that it links to an image. So if you create, for instance, with Citrix microapps, you want to create a notification, you can add an image URL, and that will just show up as an image within Citrix Workspace. So here you can see that you can use that image URL, and you could use it to create an image within your new interface.
Yeah, or you're building an application that shows you various beers. You can add that application. It just gives you a link and you can download it. But keep in mind, it's just the URL you see right here. The image itself is not part of the response.
No, that's correct.
Okay, so we had the 4 examples for Merriam-Webster, for Steam, for the waste management system, and for Untapped. So how can we translate these to PowerShell? Well, first, when we had the Merriam-Webster part, we use this URL. Yeah, but that's just URL. How do I use that in PowerShell? Actually, it's pretty simple. You put in Invoke web request, dash URI, you add the URL, and it gives you this response. It's not entirely what we're after yet, because you basically only care about this part. The rest isn't really relevant at this time. So I do an Invoke web request and I say content, and I add the convert from JSON, so it's in a readable format when you see it in PowerShell. And this should give you this kind of response. Well, that's a bit better. I just did a search for scripting, and it showed me these two definitions. There's a third one, but again, it's not on the screen. So how can I take this a bit further? So I wrote a simple function that's called consult dictionary. It requires one parameter, and that's a search string. It uses the same target URI with my API key and the search string, and it retrieves those, and it gives a list of all the definitions, the dates, and the definitions of the items that are found. So that will result in a response like this. So you can basically in your PowerShell session say consult dictionary scripting, and it will give you the definitions for scripting that it knows. So that's one useful way. So now to the next one, Steam. Well, we saw the achievements from Rocket League. So we're basically doing the same thing as just before, but now it gives in content, there's a sub variable that says achievement percentage. So I need to drill down a bit more. So basically what you're saying, you're doing the same thing, content, I convert from JSON, and then I drill down to achievement percentage and achievements. And it gives me a list like this.
Yeah,
so you see, yeah.
So the convert from JSON is really create, because the JSON is kind of also like an object. It's a table, it has stuff. But with the convert from JSON, you create a PowerShell object from it with automatically which columns are where and stuff. So that's also a really good command to remember.
So you can see that 90% of the people have the first timer achievement of the Rocket League players. So once again, I had Command and Conquer, and it basically works the same way. Now, of course, almost all APIs are different. It's not one universal language. It's just a way to get the information, but everybody designed their API a bit differently. So this is not really a way that will work out of the box for everything. You just need to look up the documentation, and most of the time they're pretty well documented. See, someone is raising their hand. Can I see that? I can't see who it was. I can just see a notice for someone who rose their hand.
Okay, well, make sure that if you have a question, type it in the question box, and then Jake will look at that question and interrupt us.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of about API documentation, first I forgot about this one. One for the user. You can also grab user information. For this, you do need an API key. So they don't want you to everyone to grab user information. And honestly, it's not the best example because you need to have a Steam ID of the player you're looking up information about, and that ID isn't really searchable. You need to look up the player in the Steam console, and then you can, in the address bar, you can see the ID. But it's just one example. So I have the simple PowerShell command, but I took it a bit further and created a small pop-up so you can see my information. My name is Chris, my real name, when I last logged off, and when my profile was created. So this is one example of stuff you can do with an API. But of course, the code for this screen is a bit longer. So when we move to, we're talking about documented APIs, and this is back to the undocumented one. I wrote a function for the waste management system to basically show me when the trash is being picked up. And as you saw before, this is two-step. First, I need to give my postal code and my house number. Then it gives me back a bag ID. So I do the API request and put it in the variable trash info. And the trash info.bag ID is the ID that I want to put in the new URL. And then I pick it up again. And if you can see, I've done a where object, only the stuff where there's a date for the trash, so it hides all the other waste types that aren't picked up at my home. So, and it gives me a screen like this, so I can see exactly when plastic is being picked up, when green waste is being picked up, when paper is being picked up at my house. Why did I choose that example? Well, I actually used it in my home automation. We're stepping slightly away from PowerShell for a moment. This is in my home automation system. So every day, basically, it retrieves these dates. Then it gets current date, and it sees if one of them matches. And if one of them matches, it formats it to a message, and it pushes it as a notification to my phone. So when I wake up early in the morning at 11:30, I see notification, I realize I'm too late, and I also, as a bonus, know which type of waste will be piling up in my house. So move to the fourth one, untapped. This is, well, I could basically do the same thing again, but I want to take one step further. So I wrote a function, which is a bit more elaborate. I made a function find beer with one search string, so I can say find beer space, let's say Budweiser, and it should give me feedback of all the kinds of beer that I sought for and if I drank them. So if I do with Vleteren, which is also a pretty popular Belgian ale, a bit more special, it gives me this. So you can all the beers of that with that name, and also shows if I drank it, yes or no. Or let's see if I registered, because there are more of these that I tried, but these are the ones that I registered. Okay, that was for the grabbing information part. We're just focusing on getting information, but you also want to do something with it. But before we continue, I think you have a question.
Yeah, so a couple of questions here. I've got one actually myself for it. Do you think that APIs effectively, is the age of the graphical user interface dead? These represent the future, don't they? If we're looking at, people moving away from using, graphical interfaces for doing basic tasks, but if you want to do anything more advanced, this sort of operation is going to become the norm.
I wouldn't say that really, because you always have a user who isn't skilled in IT in any way that needs to use an application. So it basically depends on the type of information. The useful thing when using stuff like this is to combine information. Like my fellow Chris will also say in a couple of moments, we'll show it in micro apps. So in a way, it's useful for indeed removing some clients of applications, because you only want the data in that application. But on the other hand, in some cases, you do want the client because you want to do stuff with it.
You want to sort of interact with it.
I do think that it's not the end of the graphical user interface, but it could be the end of being stuck with one graphical user interface. If you don't like your SaaS application, how that graphical user interface is, but they do have an API, why don't you build all the functions in your own graphical user interface, like in a micro app or whatever, so that you have the choice now to create your own user interface. And I think that is part of it. And the second part of APIs is really because you don't need the user interface anymore, you can combine different applications. So you can get data from one application and post it in another application without the graphical user interface. So you can even automate that. So that is the one side. But on the other side, we still always have a user that has to input something first.
So as for most questions, it basically depends. I think Salesforce is a good example where you might want to only use it through API, because it's basically just a big database with information that you retrieve.
Yeah, there are more. There are a lot of SaaS applications, for instance, that don't scale great when you open it on a mobile device. So, for instance, using like Salesforce or SAP on a mobile device on a small screen is maybe not that handy. But yeah, if you write your own user interface, especially for a mobile device, but use the data from the big SaaS application, that's also really good use case for APIs.
Yeah. But it's very good for getting information, but putting in information, it still depends. Before I continue, I'm going to speed things up a bit because or you won't see all Chris's pretty cool stuff that he's about to do. I'm curious about what program Chris is using for his home automation. It's Has.io. I'll post a link in a moment. And for the other, Sam gives a pretty good example, building reports with Desktop with the Citrix Monitor API. I know a buddy of ours, Elcho, did a pretty good post on that about using OData to grab information from Citrix Director. I'll try to also post a link to that. But I'd like to get a bit of a move on. So we talked about grabbing information, and basically we also want to do stuff with it. So this being Citrix, most of the people who try to Citrix Cloud, they also have a developer website with a lot of APIs for the various services that Citrix provide. And we looked at this last year and it wasn't really complete, but since they added this cool thing, Invoke Api. So basically they describe the API over here. You just need to add your customer ID and you use that URL, and it shows you which header parameters it wants. So one of this is optional and one is required. The authorization is basically the bearer token or the API key, but we're not getting into that right now because it isn't really relevant for what we're trying to talk about. And it has Invoke API. Well, that makes it a lot easier. You just get a screen. You need to fill out these parts. Basically, you only need the authorization because the other ones aren't really required. And this API, it just grabs the delivery groups in your in your Citrix Cloud site. So now I put in my client ID and my secret, and it creates a bearer token, and it gives me this response. So basically, they allow you in a website to try your own try them APIs without using PowerShell or just doing it at the website to play around with it. And I think that is pretty neat. So it shows some of the delivery groups that is in this Citrix Cloud tenant. So how can I use that in PowerShell? Well, it's a back and invoke web request. I add the method and I add the headers because it wants the authorization as a header. And once again, I grab the content, I convert it from JSON, and I drill down to the item subvariable, and it gives me a list of all delivery groups. But still, we're only grabbing information. How to do something? Well, some of you guys who worked around with Citrix Cloud, before you can begin, you need the resource location because your cloud connectors need to connect to something. So you probably want to create this resource location. Of course, you can press the plus sign and create it yourself, but where's the fun in that? So this is actually one of the things that isn't documented, and we found out ourselves by reading the API how this actually works. So it isn't that complex. So basically I have a body, I supply the name of how what the name should be. I convert that body to JSON, and I supply the headers. These are just static, and the bearer token is, as we've shown before. Then I do another invoke web request, and as you can see, there's one difference. It does a post instead of a get, and a post is basically you sending something or doing something. I add the body with the name of the resource location, add the headers, and basically I stick it into a variable. I grab the content and convert it from JSON. So one more notice, and it gives me this response. So basically, it created it. It gave me the ID and gave me a name and etc. So this one isn't really documented. We found it out ourselves how it works, and Chris is going to show in a moment how we did that. So when I go back,
and also also, you just told people, of course, you got the get and the post. But there are some couple more. You got a delete command to delete the records from an API. You have the put command, which updates a record from an API. So there are a couple.
Yeah, okay, but the basics that you learn first are get and post.
Yeah, get and post.
Yeah. So when you go back to your tenant, you see the resource locations created, and you can start installing your cloud connectors. Two slide notes before we move to Chris's part. One is a link to developer documents to get a bearer token, because before you start, you need to get a bearer token. Of course, you can use the Invoke API that you saw a while back, but you can also do it from PowerShell. And the first link is one to do it the Citrix way. And the second one is is doing it completely with PowerShell, and that's a blog by Elcho that I mentioned earlier. One thing.
Also put the link in the chat of that blog because we talked about it.
Yeah. Okay. And one thing that we noticed, we started working with the Cloud API last year, and then it was usually CWS auth bearer with the equal sign and then the token. But in some API calls, it wants it this way. So bearer and a space and then the token. You need to keep that in mind, because if it wants it this way and you do it this way, then it won't accept it. So I'm going to hand it over to my buddy Chris.
Yes. I also see a question, so let me first answer also the question. It's a really good question. It is, are APIs really only helpful with cloud, or is it also useful on premise? Well, two answers to that. Something that needs to have an API, and a lot of SaaS applications have APIs, cloud applications. But you can also have a web application on premise with its own API. So it can be your own web server. And what I'm even going to demonstrate is build your own API. So I got an application on premise. It just only has an SQL database, for instance. How can I use it how can I get that information to the web, to a micro app? So that is coming up, and that is using it on-prem.
Okay, but before I hand it over, we still have we also have two poll questions that we'd like to do first.
Yeah.
So the first one, I think it shows up right now. Do you think APIs will be part of your work in the near future? Let this run for a couple of seconds.
Let's give it a minute, and I will answer the other question that came in. Is API available for every software and cloud service, etc.? Or is it something that a vendor should enable? Well, two answers also to that. A vendor has to make their API public and bring documents, or you could find the API yourself. But not every cloud service, etc., has an API. You can also just build your website on a HTML base or a Java base, and you can look what you will, but you won't see the API there unless they specify that they also have an API and you can use it. So it's not something that vendors are required to give. But what I'm starting to see when I work with customers, and those customers are looking for new software and they are looking for cloud software, that they always ask those vendors, do you have an API? And I think that should be one of the questions when buying new software. Do you guys have an API? And is it documented?
Okay, so the first question is finished. Do you think APIs will be part of your work in the near future? Well, 58% yes. That's more than I would assume. And yeah, basically just, of course, I also understand the don't know part, because it depends on the company you work for, the customers you have, the things you're trying to do. But I do think everybody should at least look into it once. So before we continue, we have a third question.
Yeah, put the next poll up, and then I will also answer a question from the chat again.
Shall we first do this question?
Yeah, put the next poll up. Yeah.
Have you looked into Citrix micro apps?
Yeah, while you guys answer, let me answer the question of Mr. Blaker, a good friend of mine. He asked, you've shown PowerShell examples, but works more or less the same with Bash or Python? Yes, you can use, even from the command line, you have a command line web browser which can get API data. It's called curl, so that you can just use from your Bash, and it's built in often into Linux. And with Python, you can also do API calls. So I think that these responses are interesting to see that people have not yet looked into the micro apps, what Citrix is calling the future of work. So then what I'm going to show you is then will be the first
shall I
slide.
make you a presenter then?
Yeah, we're going to do a screen change because we're, as you can see on the webcams, we're not sitting together because of COVID, of course. So flip it around.
So you're a presenter right now?
Yes, I'm going to share my screen and put this there. And okay. So yeah, I'm just going to put it like this. Well, we were at searching for API. So Chris has done a lot of slides and examples and stuff, and I'm just didn't prepare that much. No, that's true. But I'm gonna do a lot of things live here.
Chris is more hardcore than me.
Yeah, I'm gonna just demo. So the first thing is searching for an API. So Chris has shown really a lot of examples on APIs that were well documented. But what about those APIs that those vendors that didn't have API documents out there? For instance, what Chris showed you guys was creating a resource location in Citrix Cloud. That is not documented as of now. So how did we find it? Well, you can just open a web browser, in this case, Firefox. And one thing you can do is open the web development tools. So I'm going into the web development tools. They are in Dutch with me, but it's you can see I'm in network, which is network in English. So go to network, and then from here you can see which traffic is going in your web browser. So what URLs are used and stuff. So if this website uses an API, I should be able to see it here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new resource location. I'm going to call it demo, because we are doing a demo. I'm going to click save, and the moment I hit save, you will see that there will be data starting to get down here. So I'm going to click save, and you can see there's a whole lot of data. But from experience, I know that I always have to look really close to the top, because I just clicked it and then it has to do something. So refreshing the page and all that kind of stuff I don't want to see. And as you might know, I did click save. So I posted something to the website. So here I have the post. And here you can see the API call it uses. So this is the Citrix internal API. This is my customer number, and this is resource location. I can even see the body I sent with it. So this is the JSON body. It's called demo because I entered the name demo. So I can just see that all here. Here I also can see which headers are sent with it. And one of the things I can see is my Barrett token here. So you can generate your Barrett token with the script, but you can also just do something and then copy it. You can take a screenshot and type this whole thing over. It's a demo account, and the Barrett token are only 15 minutes live. So that is one way to find it out. But now we come to the next part. So let me put up the slide, and we're going to turn the APIs, what I already said in the beginning, to 11. and that is testing an API. So I found something now, and now I want to make sure that it works. Well, what I can do is write a whole PowerShell script with its URL and just hope it works and I get the correct response. A better way to do it is done with a program which is called Postman. And Postman is really easy. It's like a web browser, but completely developed for API. So as you can see, I got a URL, how you call it, bulk URL inputter. And here I can choose what option I'm going to send it. I'm going to do the post and get. So I can build here the API response and see if it's working. So I'm going to choose a post. I'm going to copy in that URL we just found. So I already copied it in. As I also said, I need the authorization needs to be in the header. So let me just get back here and you see that the header is called authorization. So I created a header here in Postman. It's really easy. Just go to header, type in the name authorization and enter the bearer token. And I need to send a body, and body is in this case a JSON. So I can just go body raw data a JSON, and I can from the aanvraag.
The request.
I'm not so good at a request. I'm not so good at translating today. So from my request, I can see how the JSON should look. So I can just copy that, fill in my own name, in this case, Postman test, and I can press send. Well, this will give back an invalid bearer token because what I already said, the bearer token is only available for 15 minutes. So I need to copy in the new bearer token that I just generated. Okay, here it is. And if I send it now, I get an error. I didn't copy it correct, I think. Let me do this again. That part, because this should work. We already demoed it once, so looks okay. That is one problem when you're doing live demos. So this should actually just work. Oh wait, there is an extra space before it. Maybe that's the problem. Or else we're gonna skip the example because I think that it is clear what we are trying to do here. I don't know really. There are also some points in here. That is looking really weird. Not how it went the last time. Yeah, look, there are 3 points in there. So that is correct, but it's not a space after that. So this bearer token is just a weird bearer token. So that's throwing it off at the moment. I can wait 50 minutes, do it again, get a better bearer token without strange things in there, because this should work.
Maybe it's an invalid character somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere, I think that. But what I want to show you is, so at least I get, you can see that I even get a response that it's not working correctly, or else I should get a response that it worked correctly. What you should also know is there is a, here you can see the codes. So 401 means unauthorized. So you can also view the codes of the APIs. So let's hope that the rest of the demos goes better. But Postman, really, I would recommend download it, look into it, and use it for the testing.
Just look up one website with it and just play around with it.
Yeah,
it gives a lot of understanding about how these websites actually work.
Yeah, I'm also gonna use it again in the presentation. So we're gonna get back to Postman, and then it will probably work. So let me just close this one.
It's like this. We've got one question about other sort of favorite clients. Is there anything similar you're using, or is it mostly just Postman?
No, Postman is the most well-known tester for APIs. I know there are some other ones out there, but for me, it's just I always look up my stuff with Firefox and then test it with Postman.
Yeah, we looked into it also in Chrome and Internet Explorer, and it just in Firefox is a bit more readable. It gives a bit more information than the other browsers. So do that first to look into what the website is doing, and then move over to Postman if you want to try it out.
Brilliant, thank you.
Yeah. So the next thing I want to do for you guys is we're going to talk about those micro apps. So as you can see, I'm here in a Citrix Workspace. And let me first show you the front end of a micro app, and then we're going to build one together. So these are all micro apps, and this will get data from a API source. So for instance, I have a PTA database, a REST DBA database, which has PTO requests. And I can just get them here. I can see extra details. I can even approve it or cancel. I can delete the PTO request. I can save a change, like I'm going to change this request to my good friend here and save it. So with those micro apps, you can edit. Or you can even edit data, you can show data, and this is all API based. So I think that this is what the user sees. Another thing a user will get are notifications. I will show them when we generate the notification. So let's see how an admin can go to this. So my browser is refreshing. Please, demo gods, let Citrix Cloud work correctly. That's usually a bit of a tall order, but we are here. Okay, so what I want to show you guys is we are going to build a micro app which will give the users of the micro app the top news stories about coronavirus in the US. Maybe your company need that users can easily see that or get a notification when there is new news about the coronavirus. So I have there is an API, it's called the newsapi.org, and with the news API, you can easily create or get news items from all different sources throughout that API. This API also requires an API key. So what I did prior to this is I registered myself and get an API key. And here under authentication, you can see how you enter that API key in your system. And then here under endpoints, you can see the different endpoints that there are within the API. So this API is pretty well documented. So you can see you can do a get on this API with the top headlines, which means just give me the top of the headlines, the most important headlines. I can do a country filter. So what you must know is when you see this, a question mark, then everything after that, it becomes a query parameter, and query parameters are linked together with an and symbol.
Ampersand.
Yeah, ampersand. So here you can see the top headlines for the US. Well, we're going to create the top headlines for Corona. So what are we going to do? We're going to go to the micro apps admin. We are going to click create an integration. We're going to, Citrix has provided us with templates, which we can use for Jira integration and that kind of stuff. Well, this news integration is just a custom API, so I have to create a new HTTP integration. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call it Corona News USA. The base URL is what every API that you're going to use within those micro apps starts with. So in this case, our base URL, you can see all those these endpoints, they all have one thing in common. They start with this part, with that news API.org. So our base URL can just be the news API.org. I can select an icon, calendar, that's all right. And here, what we already said and what Chris also said is that you often have to authenticate with an API. So yeah, the micro app also needs to authenticate. In this case, I got an API key. And as you can read in here, if you go to authentications, it will tell you that you need to add a query parameter, which is called API key, and then in the value, you paste your API key. I can click add, and now I have created my integration. So this is now the integration, but it's doing nothing yet. I don't get any data. So here I can see which tables there are. There are not yet tables. I need to load in data. So we start with a data loading point. So we need to add a data endpoint. Just like the website says here, it's also calling it endpoint. So you can choose an endpoint. In this case, I want those top headlines about coronavirus in the US. So I'm going to choose this, the version 2 top headlines. So that top headlines, what it's also saying here, is my endpoint. So I'm going to put that in the endpoint URI. I'm going to also give it a name, coronavirus news USA. I can choose, do I need to get or post it? Well, we could see here, we need to do a get. And we need those query parameters. So I need to create 2 query parameters, and they are required. I want to send them every time in the URL. And the first one is, I talked about, we want to go on USA news. So I'm going to enter country, and I'm going to enter US. Just like here, you can see they do country US. If you want to filter then the news, they have, if you read the website, they have a parameter, it's called Q, which just means question, a query. What do you want to search? And I want to search Corona. So now I can test my service, and I get the response 200. So with Postman in my demo that completely failed, I get the response 401, which meant I'm not authorized. Well, here I get the response 200, which means you're good to go. So if I look into the details, I can even see that I already get the news. So this is the JSON response. What Chris also showed you, just the hard JSON response. So I want to put that in a data table so I can present that to my users. But first, we need to know what is the data table structure. So here I can click on create those tables. I can just say fetch JSON structure from the API. So it's going to do the same as when I clicked on test API. And this is something that you really need to watch out for. It gives me the JSON with the status and how much articles there are in there, the top articles. So there are 12 articles. And then from here, it starts the article. So this is an object with an extra object in there. So this is not a string. You can see because of this bracket, it is another array in there.
So when you compare it to the Steam example, I need to drill down to achievements and achievement percentage. This is basically the same thing.
Correct. And I need to drill down to articles. And that's really easy. You can just add that here. I want to start in articles. I can click generate tables, and now I got my table. So if I click here, I can see that it automatically found all this information on that news. But because this is a data table, for everyone who ever worked with Access or any other database, you need to set a primary key so that it knows that it is a thing that differentiates it from other data. In this case, I'm going to set the primary key as URL to the news story because those URLs are, if it's correct, always different. And I'm going to save it. And I'm going to add this data structure. So if I'm now going to look at those tables, I can see I have a table and it is filled with the latest news. Cool. So this is the data loading part. But now we need to present it to our users. Presenting it to our users is done by clicking here and clicking on Add Micro App. It will now create a micro app. One thing that I also forgot to tell you is you need to set the synchronization. So how often does this data loading happen? How often do you want to get the news? Well, I'm going to set it for every minute now. And here I can also click on it manual to run it to get the data. what's now every minute it's going to check. And here I can now edit the micro app I created. The first thing you want to do is create a page. And I'm going to create a table, and I'm going to call it all news. And this table will then give me all the news about the coronavirus. So it's going to ask me here from which data table you want to look at and which fields do you want to be in the table. So I want the author, I want the content, I want a description, published ad is okay, the source name, the title, and the URL to where it is. I add all these fields, and here I get the table. You can customize this table if you want. You can set the content in the 4, the title at the 4. I'm not going to do that at the moment. We are in a bit of a time restriction, of course. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a details page. So news details. What this allows me to do is when I give my users the table, they can click on one item and then get the full details of that item. So here I'm just going to select all the fields and I'm going to edit. So this gives me everything. Now, of course, I need to link those two together. So I'm going to go to all news. And one thing I'm going to do here is click on my table, select use records related to the detail page. And I'm going to add an action that when you click on one of these lines, it goes to my news details. Okay, now I'm going to go to the properties. I'm going to give this a name, and this is the name that the users will see. So I'm going to call it Corona News. I can even give it an icon. I'm going to make it a calendar. And I need to enable an action. This will give a button to the users to use that to go to that page. So I'm going to choose the page all news and I'm going to save it. Now we need to assign a user to this. So this is done with the subscriptions. I'm going to click on subscriptions. I'm going to choose my test user from Azure and it's now subscribed. So if everything went all right, I'm now signed in as that user. If I'm going to actions and I will refresh my workspace, then here I have the Corona News USA button. I click on it. Here is all the news articles. I click on an article and I will get the details page. From there, we can also add a notification that when there is a new record, which means there's new news, I get a notification. From this table, if there's a new record, I'm actually going to call it new news, which I already find funny. I'm going to check the box that generate those notifications after the sync is done. So the data loading sync is running. And after that, it will trigger this, this notification. Here I can add the title. So there is new Corona News. And in the body, I can also type something, or I can add some variables. So I'm going to say, well, give me the title of the news. And you know what? I noticed that we got an image URL. So I can, oh wait, I need to do that here. Display a card image. So add an image to the card. And it automatically understands that it is from the image URL, it generates the picture. So it does a load it, it knows it's a picture, so it's going to show it as a picture. This is also really a nice one. I don't want users to pile up their notifications. So if it's not anymore a top news story, so it's deleted from our database, the notification should not be going to the user. I'm going to save this and run it. And if everything, this is always a bit difficult because now we have to wait for a new news article before the notification comes to the user. So the user, I cannot demo the notification here until there is a new news article, which there is not. But as you can see here, you can see how it will look at for the user, and this notification will appear in the activity feed. So This is already a little bit down the rabbit hole, showing you guys how you can make your own micro app. And as you can see, it's quite easy.
Yeah, I'd just
Especially
like to add the 4 examples I showed you. You can easily integrate them into micro apps the same way.
so for our next presentation, I think that we will talk more about using the same example.
Yeah.
You can clearly see we both worked on the presentation separately. So the next time I'm gonna create a beer micro app. So let's turn, this was turning it up to 9, let's turn it up to 11, and 11 is create your own API. So I got something here on my server. It is a Powershell script, and I want the data that is generated with this PowerShell script. I want to show that into the micro app. So Citrix Cloud micro apps cannot use the data loading point a PowerShell script. It must be an API. So how can I go from a PowerShell script to an API? First, let me show you this PowerShell script. What it does is simple. It will import the Active Directory module. It will ask for my credentials. This is my lab, so I just have an administrator. And it will ask for my password. And then the next thing it will do, it's gonna get all the users that are in my Active Directory. You can use any script, of course, you want. This was just easy way of getting information, just querying my AD with my credentials, and it's gonna select all the some account names. And what I want is, if I run this part, I'm gonna get a PowerShell object like this. But an API cannot do anything with a PowerShell object. It must be a JSON response. So I just add convert to JSON at the end. And if I run it now, you can see I get all the same account names as JSON output. Oh, Chris, this is great, but this is not an API and I cannot get it to my micro apps. So how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to use some little tool called Microsoft Azure. And within Microsoft Azure, we have a way of getting the data to Azure, and then from Azure to the micro apps or to whatever system you want. So the first system we're going to use to get the data, it's called Azure Automation. Azure Automation allows you to put an agent, which is called a hybrid worker, on any device that is connected to the internet. So as long as your device has connection to the internet, it can become an agent within Azure Automation, and I can perform runbooks on that agent. So here I got my a runbook. It's called demo get AD. And if you look in this runbook, you can see it has the same script that I just demonstrated to you. The only difference is it will get my credentials now from the credential vault within automation. So I don't have to type it in, because that, of course, will not work. So, and then it will perform the same script and output the JSON. So what I can do now is run this script, and I can choose a hybrid worker. So one thing I did is on an on-premise machine, actually this machine that you see here through RDP, I installed a hybrid worker. So I'm going to choose it, and I'm going to say run this script on that machine. How you can see if a script is running, if you go to Task Manager and then Performance, you will soon see here that there will be an orchestration sandbox running. And that means that Azure Automation is running a script on your machine. So if we just wait another couple of seconds, I'm sure that we have it there, orchestration sandbox. It's now running that script. So let's see, the job is completed. So I can get my output. Hey, so now I got that output, the JSON file, in Azure, and Azure is on the internet. So that is a really great step. But now I need to put it to an API so that I can get this information? Well, the runbooks come with a webhook, but what you should know about this webhook, this will generate an API that will run the script. But the response of the webhook is only, I have run the script, and it's not the output of the job. So you don't have it. You want to do a get on a URL, and I want the JSON to be the output. So for that, we're going to use a different part of Azure. It's called Logic Apps. And with the Logic App, I can do when a HTTP request is received, and this will generate for me a URL, which I can copy. When it performs a get on this URL, start my automation job, wait also for the job to finish, that's important. Then get the automation output, so that's the JSON data, and put that in a 200 response. So everything is okay, here you have the output. So now I'm going to show you Postman again, with this time hopefully working. So if I'm going to go to the get, here let's do it completely new. So I'm going to do a completely new. I select get because we need to do a get. That's what it said in the beginning here. I copied this URL. So I'm just going to paste in this URL, and I'm going to do a send. One thing is, it will now also run that script. And I said, give only the response when you're completely finished running that script. Well, as you could see, the last time it took about 30 seconds. But one great thing from Logic Apps is you could at least see when it's running what it's doing exactly. So you can see, hey, I have gotten the request, and I'm now starting up your task, and I'm gonna wait for that to finish. So now we're gonna all watch together as the time goes. It took 32 seconds. It got the output. So if I now look into Postman, yes. Wow, I created my own API here. So this is what I did. I created my own API. I took PowerShell data. So Chris showed really great how you can use APIs in PowerShell. Well, I created a PowerShell script, which ended up being an API. So this is the other way around. These APIs can you now, of course, use with a micro app. So here I already created a micro app, which does a data loading on my Logic app. The data endpoint is my Logic app endpoint. And I created a micro app for this. So I can also synchronize this again manually. It will now again get that new information. And if I look as a user, I got the button get AD users, and here I got that same information. So these are all my users in the AD. And I can get it as user without being a domain admin, without even being a domain user or whatever, because this is all done throughout the API. It's just showing you the data. Of course, you can also create a whole post system with this. And what you must think about it for yourself is, I now just query the AD. With PowerShell or with Python, you can easily query an Oracle database, a SQL database, Postgres database. So you have that application with a legacy application, which is not SaaS, but your users want to use it in Citrix Workspace as a SaaS application or on their mobile device. You can build your own API functions and get that data there. So, yeah, I think that is the, this slide still left, creating your own API. Well, we did that. Let me answer one question, and then we also gonna do the final poll. So we got another question. So you can create APIs on your own AD. Yeah, so this is what I did. I created an Active Directory doesn't have APIs by default, the local Active Directory. And now I have an API which can query it. I also created an API which can post it, but you can also just create APIs for legacy applications and use them in a new way. You can even say, Well, we have a legacy application which still uses a 16-bit component, the user interface, and is requires a 32-bit operating system. Yeah, why I'm gonna keep a whole farm in the air with old legacy stuff and a 32-bit operating system? Or I can take all the functions out of that application, script them, and encrypt them in the workspace. So at the job that I do, Rawworks, we call this API as a service. So if you need it, you can always call me. So let's do the last poll here. So now you guys have seen the micro-apps and what they are capable of. Do you think that you will be implementing them in the near future?
So you just saw that if you're pretty handy with PowerShell, you can grab a lot of information and present them through micro-apps. So just think of the possibilities with it.
Yeah, and the same goes for Python. If you're handy with Python, you can do the same. That Azure runbook that I showed you guys, in the Azure automation, it can handle PowerShell and it can handle Python out of the gate. So I'm going to close the poll, but just going over the answers, I can see that a lot of people are saying it depends on the customer. Yeah, that's true. You need to have a customer which allows you to build those micro-apps, especially when you're a consultant and going from customer to customer. You have to find the right customer that allows you. I also see that a lot of people are saying yes, definitely. So that's great. And there's only 1% of the people that are saying, I don't see the use case at all. So it's great to see that that is just 1%, because we are, of course, trying with this presentation to show you that this will be part of our EUC future. So
and just to be fair, when it was presented last year at Synergy, I was skeptical too, because it felt to me they were just searching for stuff to do. But now I've seen it in action, and the possibilities combined with what Chris just showed you, you can really do a lot of stuff with it.
Yeah. So we are now even at one of my customers I'm working with today. We are not only going to create a micro app to do ticket stuff, so like create a new help desk ticket, read a help desk ticket, we're going to do that. But next to that, we are going to completely automate their onboard system, and we're going to start that onboard system with the micro app. So someone from HR will have a micro app which says, create a new employee, fill in the form, and then from there, we're going to take that form, we're going to send them to their API, the API of their HR application. From there, we're going to also start creating an Active Directory account, all that stuff. So even a big process like that can start with a micro app. So that is really powerful. So the last thing I want to talk to you guys about is we are starting a community. There are already a lot of members in there, but there is not really much posted on there yet. We are busy with filling it. We are brainstorming about how we're filling it, but there are a lot of people in that community, a lot of people that know a lot about logic apps, micro apps. So if you ever have a question when creating a logic app or a micro app or something, you can post it in this community. So let me also share with you guys the link. I don't really know how I can do this to everyone. I'm just going to answer someone's question and then click send to all. So I think that this would probably show you guys all the invitation link. So join. We'll be adding some more things to that community, but it's at least somewhere where you can go for answers.
So we have 3 more questions.
Okay, cool.
After creation, will the credentials work after password change? I think from Azure, you can probably better answer this than me.
After creation, will the credentials work after a password change? No, you then have to update the password also in your password vault in Azure Automation. But it's just easy. You can just click on your credentials, update password, and your workflow will work again. Is there a way to access micro apps for learning and development without having? Yes, that is an excellent question. You can go to the developer.cloud.com. Then you can go to Platform Resources, Citrix Workspace, and here you can get your free test instance. And this will have complete micro apps available. Everything you saw me do today was in a test instance. This test instance is 30 days, but you can unlimitedly renew it with your data in there. So just set yourself a reminder after 29 days, go back to this website. I can even show you guys. If I go to this website and I sign in with my credentials, these days we of course have the Authenticator, which is great. I'm going to verify. Here you can see that I have my test instance, and I can click here, renew, and now my test instance is renewed till 30 days later. So good question. Yes, you can. Can we use it to automate Windows Virtual Desktop? Why not? Windows Virtual Desktop has an API, and it has a PowerShell module. So you can go whatever you want to do with it, automate it. Hi, Chris and Chris. Oh, Martijn, I know that guy too. Great stuff. Not new to microapps as a Citrix sales engineer, but really excited how you guys are presenting this. Oh, thank you. And I think that those are the questions, right? Jake, did you see any extra questions?
No, nothing else. You've covered them all, guys.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for now because I think we are at the end.
Yeah, like we said, it took a bit longer than expected. We don't like to rush these things, and especially Chris wanted to show it in detail how micro apps work and how you can create your own, because it's pretty cool stuff. Even seeing it right now for the third time.
All right, I'm gonna try to grab the screen back, guys. I think you're just seeing a white screen if you're seeing anything at all.
Yeah, we're seeing a white screen.
It's so weird. Okay, I'm gonna stop it. And I'm gonna start it.
Yeah, because now now we're gonna get to the best part. We're gonna give away T-shirts.
Yay! There it is. Okay, so just to get you warmed up, I'm not giving a T-shirt away for this question, but I do want to know. Do you want to put content out on CUGC? It's so simple, and I'm the person that you talk to. So put your answers in the chat, and I can tell you right now, it's pretty easy. There's no super wrong answers here. Let's see, anyone volunteering? Okay, let me.
If I just can add, if you think back at your Citrix career, think of anything out of the ordinary that you did, any unique solution that you did. You can write about it.
Exactly.
Even if it's pretty basic, just think at their everyday lives. We're always looking for unique solutions to problems that are presented to you, and there's probably something in there that nobody did before or thought of before, and you can write about it.
And you know, a good place to start is in our forums. You can go cruising through the forums and look for a question to answer, and that's a super easy place to start because there are a lot of people asking a lot of questions. All right, so let's get to the real question. So I was going to ask a different question, but then I realized it might be too easy because there were a lot of places that you could find the answer, and I don't think that you can find this answer very easily. So who do you think is younger?
Uh-oh, now we're going to see it. I see a lot of, I see some.
He has gray hair. I don't.
A, B's, yeah. Chris Twist. Yeah.
All right, so let's see who the first 3 people to win get a shirt. So I gotta, before I click over, so I'm gonna write those down.
Yeah,
Lonnie.
so let's. let's spoil the answer. I'm 34.
And I'm 38.
Exactly. All right, congratulations.
I
will
look older, but I'm younger. Yeah.
I will reach out after the webinar and get your information and get you guys your shirts. If you didn't win a shirt, no worries. We have a store now. And since we couldn't go to Synergy and we couldn't hand out our shirts, such a bummer. But you can still get them. So let me throw the link in the chat for you really quickly. I have a link to our store. There's other stuff out there. There are hats. There's a hoodie. Actually, one of our CTPs, Eduardo and Melina and Jari and Gibson, they asked for hoodies. So we put a hoodie in the store. There's all kinds of stuff. There's women in tech stuff, lots of things. So definitely check it out. And be sure to follow us on Twitter. That's where we post our, most up-to-date information, and also LinkedIn. We have a presence everywhere, but Twitter's the fastest. And then just check us out at mycugc.org if you haven't been there in a while. I just published a new blog today, and I'm about to publish another one in a little while. Lots of information, and definitely reach out to me if you have content you'd like to share. There are lots of people who have been shy about presenting in the past, but they always do a fabulous job. And this is such a great community. Everybody's willing to help out. So don't be shy.
Yeah, and if you're shy, we can always find someone to do it with you.
Exactly. The CTA and the CTP communities are so wonderful for that very thing. We can usually find someone to co-present or help out in any way. So just reach out to me. You have my email address in your GoToWebinar confirmations, but I can put it in the chat right now.
I just want to mention the people who answered the question with just Chris. That's pretty smart.
Yeah, I saw the same one. Yeah, Chris is the oldest, or the youngest. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, guys. Thanks, Chris and Jake. I really appreciate you being on today, and thanks to all of you in the audience for spending time with us today. I really appreciate it, and hope to see you all soon.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, have a great day, everyone, or evening, wherever you are in the world, and stay safe and healthy, and hopefully someday soon we can all meet in person once again without fear. All right, thanks everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.